Picture your dog. You lean down to pet another dog on the street. Within seconds, yours is pushing between your legs, nudging your hand away, sometimes growling low in its throat. You've probably called this jealousy without thinking twice. It feels obvious. It feels human. Here's the disruption. For most of the 20th century, mainstream science refused to say that word about any animal. Jealousy was considered a complex emotion, one that required self-awareness, social comparison, a sense of fairness. Only humans, the thinking went, were wired for it. Anything that looked like jealousy in a dog or a bird was dismissed as projection, a story you were telling yourself. That assumption held for decades. Then, in 2008, a psychologist named Paul Morris at the University of Portsmouth surveyed over 1,000 dog owners and found that 81% reported jealous behavior in their pets. Pushing, barking, physically inserting themselves between their owner and a rival. The data was consistent. The behavior was specific, and it forced a question researchers had avoided. Was this really jealousy, or something else wearing its face? What you're about to learn is that the answer splits animals into two very different categories, and it changes what jealousy actually is, even in you. In 2014, a psychologist named Christine Harris at the University of California, San Diego ran an experiment that became the most cited study on this topic. She filmed 36 dogs in their own home. Each owner was asked to ignore their dog and instead show affection to a stuffed animal that whined, wagged, and moved like a real dog, a mechanical decoy. The results were immediate. 78% of the dogs pushed or touched their owner when the fake dog got attention. 42% tried to physically separate the two, and 30% snapped at the decoy itself. Critically, when the owners gave the same attention to a plastic pumpkin instead of the fake dog, the reaction dropped sharply. The dogs weren't upset about losing attention in general. They were upset about losing it to something that looked like a rival. Harris argued this met the basic definition of jealousy, a response to a perceived threat to a valued relationship triggered by a rival's presence, not just by feeling ignored. But here's where it gets stranger. Dogs weren't the only animals showing this pattern, but the deeper researchers dug, the more it looked like a specific evolutionary tool, not a unique trait. In 2016, a primatologist named Jealousy, no relation to the word itself, just coincidence in the literature. No, the actual researcher was James Anderson at Kyoto University, working with a team studying capuchin monkeys. They used a version of the unequal pay experiment, two monkeys side by side doing the same simple task, handing over a stone. One monkey received a piece of cucumber for the task. The other received a grape, a far more desirable reward in a monkey's world. The monkey receiving cucumber didn't just accept less. In documented trials, some capuchins threw the cucumber back at the researcher. Others refused to complete the task at all after seeing the unfair swap. A full work stoppage over food, triggered purely by comparison. This wasn't about scarcity. There was still cucumber. The monkeys had food. What they didn't have was equality with the monkey next to them. That distinction mattered. It suggests two different mechanisms are getting labeled with the same word. Dogs, in Harris's study, reacted to a rival threatening a relation, an attachment-based response. Capuchins, in Anderson's study, reacted to an unequal outcome between themselves and a peer, a comparison-based response. Psychologists sometimes split these into primary jealousy, an old attachment-driven alarm system, and complex jealousy, which requires tracking your status relative to someone else's. Only one of those, researchers argued, requires anything like self-awareness. That's not the whole story, though, because in 2017, a study out of Emory University's Yerkes National Primate Research Center, led by a comparative psychologist named Frans de Waal, pushed the question even further. De Waal had spent over 40 years studying primate social behavior, and his team tested something bolder. Not just unequal rewards, but unequal romantic attention. They observed a colony of chimpanzees where one female had a long-standing bond with a specific male. When she saw him grooming another female, her heart rate, measured through non-invasive monitoring, spiked, and she moved to physically interrupt the interaction within an average of 90 seconds. This wasn't food. This was a social bond, contested by a rival, resolved through direct action. But when de Waal's team ran the same test on species without long-term pair bonds, a troop of macaques where mating is far more promiscuous, the reaction barely registered. No interruption, no elevated stress mark. The behavior simply wasn't there to trigger, except there was a problem. The problem was this. If jealousy only shows up in species with strong pair bonds, that meant it wasn't a general animal emotion at all. It was a byproduct of a very specific evolutionary bet. The bet that investing in one partner, one relationship, one alliance pays off more than spreading investment thin. That reframes everything. Jealousy in this light isn't a flaw or an overreact. It's a monitoring. It exists in species that have something specific to lose, a bond that took time to build and can't be easily replaced. Dogs evolved alongside humans for an estimated 15,000 years, selected generation after generation for attachment to a single owner or family group. Capuchins live in stable troops where social rank determines access to food and mates for years at a time. Chimpanzees form alliances that can last a lifetime and determine which offspring survive. In each case, jealousy isn't random. It's priced into the relationship. The more a bond is worth, biologically, the more expensive it is to lose, and the more sensitive the alarm system watching over it needs to be. Which brings the question back to you. When you feel that tightening in your chest, watching someone's attention go somewhere else, watching a friend replaced, a partner's eyes linger too long on someone new, you've likely categorized it as a uniquely human failure, a flaw in your character, something to suppress or apologize for. But the data suggests it's older than language, older than self-reflection, possibly older than your species entirely. It's not a glitch in it's the system. The same one that made a dog push between two people, that made a monkey throw back a piece of cucumber, that made a chimpanzee's heart rate spike in under 2 minutes. You didn't invent jealousy. You inherited it. A cost calculated by evolution, still running quietly every time something you value looks like it might belong to someone else.